It's funny. A lot of people assume that when we make a distinction between B to C selling, which is business to consumer, and B to B selling, that they're very different animals. And when we talk about dealing with end consumers, we may be dealing with irrational, unpredictable people who have all kinds of bizarre needs and wants. But when we get into a business setting, suddenly everybody has shed all of that irrationality, and now they're very rational and predictable and logical, and they say just the facts, just show me the facts, and I'm going to make my decision just based on the superiority of the attributes of one brand versus another. And ironically, I think in some ways it's just the opposite. First of all, personal selling as a rule is actually more important in a B2B setting than in a B2C setting. So you're going, even though we encountered people who are selling us shoes or clothing or something like that, the reality is in most cases it doesn't make sense economically to rely on a personal selling strategy for B2C products. But it makes a lot of sense in B2B settings because it's the relationship between the salesperson and the client that's really the most important. And what that tells us is that, in fact, a lot of so-called irrational elements are going to enter into that relationship, just as they enter into any other relationship. So even though we like to think about industrial buyers or even people who are buying lead pipe or office supplies or something relatively boring like that, in fact, there's a lot of intrigue going on there. They may make a decision based on the prior relationship they have with the person, whether they bought them a nice Christmas gift last year, or the reality is that sometimes makes a difference. Certainly, with the advent of technology and online networking, social media and so on, LinkedIn and other kinds of social networks, that whole relationship aspect becomes even more important. So we tend to buy from people that we feel comfortable with, and that's why it's so important for sales reps to really take an interest in their clients, not to just think of them as someone who has an order form to fill out, but to keep in mind that there's a flesh and blood person sitting behind that desk who has certain needs that may not be apparent. They have a need to feel appreciated. They may be under strong pressure in terms of keeping their job. They might even be fearful about that. So as a salesperson, it's your job to make them look like a hero. And that might be an irrational need, but it's definitely a very substantial need, and probably the foremost one when it comes to B2B selling.